Hey, what's up, everyone? Dragon here again, here to tell you that you should be watching John Carpenter's The Thing. So, The Thing is a 1982 film written and directed by John Carpenter, who most of you probably know from movies like Escape from New York and Halloween. Kind of has uh, cut his teeth, so to speak, on kind of making like really cult favorites. Big Trouble in Little China is another one of my favorites of his. But yeah, so a lot of the kind of like cult hits from the 80s, a lot of them were kind of his films. And in the 80s, John Carpenter was kind of like people who like these kind of genre films, as they call them. He was kind of like God. He made all these great movies of during that decade. And the thing is basically kind of, it is based on a short story called Who Goes There, like a novella. Now, there was an older film called, The Thing from Another World was the first adaptation of that story, but was kind of a loose interpretation. The John Carpenter's film was widely regarded as like the most faithful adaptation of that narrative, and basically takes place in the Arctic at kind of a U.S. military outpost, kind of station where these guys are basically holding up for the winter. The winter's moving in. They all basically live there. They have like geologists, pilots. They do basically kind of research there, scientific research, kind of serves as a military outpost, and just kind of basically a point for the U.S. just to kind of have a presence there. So it's not like nothing really high and mighty. It's a little, again, it's an outpost. It is literally what it sounds like. So these guys are there. They're doing their thing, and essentially they basically in the beginning of the film you see this helicopter chasing this dog, this husky, and they're firing at it, and the dog runs into the U.S. camp, and they're like, "What the hell?" And the helicopter lands, and these Norwegian guys, pop out. Well, one of them pops out with a gun, starts shooting. He accidentally blows up his helicopter, kills the other guy, and they end up taking him out, and like shit, they're thinking like, well, what happened to these guys? Is it cabin fever or what the hell? So they go over to long story short, they go to the base camp. It's all burnt down. It's all messed up. Everyone's dead. But they find this thing out in the ice, this weird body. They don't really know what the hell it is. They bring it back to their base camp, which sounds like a great idea, right? And they look at it, and it's this weird, misshapen, like dual-headed, like they don't know what the hell this thing is. So they're going to keep it on ice and freeze it, and then when the winter's over, they'll report it in, and they're trying to report it in, but they can't get through to anyone on the continent. So that's it, So all right, we'll just hold up for the winter, keep this thing on ice. We'll see what happens. Well, long story short, the dog reveals itself to be some kind of horrific creature, starts infecting other things. The bodies that have been, they brought back start moving around, or they burned those, but the dog is now has spread. Other things have are changing, and basically, what you find out, this thing, this organism that they learn is an alien of some kind. These Norwegians have uncovered it under the ice from a spaceship, brought it back, and as McCready, played by Kurt Russell, says, they bring it back, thaws out, wakes up, probably not in the best of moods. So starts infecting people. And the thing about the thing is that yes, that's right, you heard it right here, folks. Is that when it takes over somebody, it can basically create a perfect copy. It can mimic your not just your appearance, but your behavior, your speech. It is suggested that perhaps it even kind of inherits your memories, and that's why it can kind of mimic a person perfectly because it knows how that person would act based on that person's kind of life experience. So basically, paranoia sets in, and nobody in the camp really trusts each other anymore because they don't know who's who. Whoever's the thing isn't going to come out and admit it, and they even make a point saying if someone said if I was a perfect copy, how would you know? And pretty much when that character played by Keith David says that, Child is his name, says that you can feel even watching on screen like the pullback from everyone, whatever little bond might have still been there, you can feel it just immediately evaporate. Like when he says that if one of us was this alien, how the hell would we know? And immediately everyone's just like, ooh. Everyone's looking at each other like, that's a good question. Who the hell are all of you right now? And so long story short, paranoia sets in, and they find a way to kind of maybe start testing people to figure out, who is the thing while this thing is behind the scenes sabotaging these attempts. So I won't spoil the ending for you, but essentially, mayhem ensues. Paranoia starts tearing this group apart, as well as the thing starts tearing people apart. And it just becomes this descent into madness, like the bottom of the world, which is just a great premise for a film or just a story in general. So that's basically, that's the narrative in a nutshell. That's the old VHS tape, like synopsis on the back when they would have like these huge long synopsis VHS tapes. Anyone remember those? The white in my beer suggests that I do. But beneath all that, the story is really about, yes, it's about paranoia. That part is obvious. If you've seen the film, you got that part pretty quick. And a lot of it was a bit of a Cold War analogy too, not being able to trust the other. This idea like, could your neighbors be, communist? Could your neighbors be like Russians? That kind of thing where everyone was nervous about that kind of thing. But beyond that, it plays on the idea of that, so much of what we feel or like in our daily kind of comfort, our trust, and people we know is really like flimsy. It makes you really realize that as close as you feel to somebody or as close as you think you feel to somebody, how little it would take to shatter that. How very little it would take to come between you and that person. And like the characters in the film, that make that trust evaporate. And all it takes is child saying, if I was an imitation, a perfect imitation, how would you know? That line alone destroyed completely whatever maybe lingering sense of unity and, familiarity that whole group had with each other. Just by putting the idea in their heads that one of us, or more than one of us, may not be what we appear to be, and there's no way for you to know until we come for you. That right there is like your bonds, no matter how tight, no matter how strong, no matter how many years, of your life they've been forged over, destroys it in an instant. And that which we feel is so strong, that our unity with others, people you grew up with, your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, girlfriend, husband, wife, boyfriend, whatever, best friend, BFF, best friend on Facebook, Twitter followers, whatever. The bond that you think you have, or rather the bond that you have, but it is the illusion of how strong that bond is. Could that bond stand up to a test like that? When that person might now be something else, and you realize basically how much we are driven by kind of biological instinct, biological imperative, as opposed to kind of like learned behavior. It's kind of the whole nature versus nurture thing where, we have certain things that we are the way they are just by evolution. That's just how we are. And there's other parts of our personality that we develop as people through life experience, through the course of our lives. And I think for a lot of us, we feel that, the nurture is usually more in control than the nature. And perhaps the reason that is, or we feel that is because the nature doesn't feel the need to kind of speak up. The nature doesn't feel the need to kind of, usurp that other sense, that it kind of put itself front and center because there's nothing kind of endangering you. But the second there might be something that comes as a threat to you, nature suddenly kicks in and takes all those good, warm, mushy feelings and just pushes them aside and says, this is what matters. Doesn't matter who this person is to you. Doesn't matter what experiences you have with them. They could be trouble. They could be a danger to you. You need to view them as the enemy. And if need be, you need to maybe eliminate them. Right away, nature kicks in and makes you realize that nature is always there. The instinct, the evolution, the human condition, the biology of what we are is always running right underneath the surface. And it's very easy for us to turn a blind eye to it and pretend that no, who I am, not what I am, matters most. And who I am will always, trump what I am until what you are speaks up. Until something happens to you or might happen to you that makes what you are need to kind of step forward and take control. So it is a story really about how much of what we are is determined by who we are versus what we are. And I know that might sound a little gobbledygook, so I apologize. But again, when you see these guys at the beginning of the movie, they're all chummy, they're all friends, they're all bros. Sweet. It doesn't take long for those relationships to dissolve. And it's understandable, too. I'm not saying these guys are bad people for reacting the way they do, because quite frankly, how else could you react? If you can't trust who's who, you can't trust who's who, and you then have to basically assume that anyone and everyone is a threat, and you have to keep your guard up until you can kind of eliminate who's what, and when you can kind of confirm who's friend from foe, which these characters start doing. And when that happens, you see bonds reforming. Okay, now that I know that you're a human, cool, bump it, let's, we're good to go, let's do that. But until that happens, everyone's kind of looking at everyone like, who the hell are you? Are you one of them? Are you not? Like, it doesn't matter what you've been through together before. What matters is now that person that you think is your friend might not be your friend anymore. And it's not that they don't like that person anymore. It's just that that person may not be that person anymore. It might be a perfect imitation that is a predator lying in wait, that is getting close to you by making you think that they are that same person, that person you've had relationships with, that person you have bonds with, that person you trust. So you let them in, you let them get close, and when they get close enough, it got you. And that's how the Thing, this predator, hunts. That's what it does. It gets close. It doesn't just attack like a monster, not till it gets you basically, but it worms its way into your life. It's parasitic in that sense, where it adheres itself to kind of your social construct. So you let it in. You know, that's the whole point. You don't fight it because you don't realize it's there. That is its greatest weapon. So the fact that they are aware that this thing is moving around the camp and that, you know, it's taking people over, already they have an advantage because they know there's something there, which puts it at a slight disadvantage. Still, once it imitates people, you can't tell. Not at first anyway. So The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, that's basically what the story's about. It is about kind of, yes, paranoia and all that. Sure, the allegory of like the Cold War, it's very much front and center, and you don't have to dig too deep to find that. But at the same time, it is also about us taking a hard look in the mirror and realizing that so much of who we think we are and how it's determined by kind of what we want it to be determined by may not be as factual as we believe. Basically, you might be more of a biological machine than you are kind of a thinking, rationalizing person. I mean, yes, those are important qualities, but those are kind of these behaviors that we exhibit, you know, our ability to kind of love and show compassion and, you know, try to understand things sometimes, or, you know, help people, sometimes at the expense of ourselves, are really kind of luxuries that we enjoy by living in a society where we don't have to worry about something with teeth and claws jumping out of the bushes and eating us. We're top dogs. We have mastery over most of the natural world, so we can, you know, now use more of our free time to kind of explore and exercise these feelings of morality. You know, feelings that, you know, things we do just to be kind to others. Whereas in nature, we would have to be colder, we would have to be more calculating, we would have to run more on instinct and emotion because that's how you survive. So what happens when the predators come back? What happens when the monsters, the beasts that we keep at bay, infiltrate us? You know, what happens to all these luxurious feelings we're allowed to feel then? You know, and how quickly we would revert back to kind of this more primitive mindset of like, you know, kill or be killed, trust no one, survival for number one is all that matters. And, you know, that's kind of what this movie shows, is that, you know, look around the room next time you're hanging out with all your friends and ask yourself, if you found out that one of these people could be the Thing, how chummy would you really be with everyone in the room? Would you really just, you know, selflessly, excuse me, you know, do whatever you can to try to help, or would you pull back instinctively? And would it even be like a conscious thing on your part? Or would you just do it naturally? Would, you know, this guise of civility just slip off and now you are the primitive? Now you are, you know, the caveman who's just always at the ready, spear in hand, waiting for anyone and anything to try to take him out so he can get to it first. You know, that's, you know, that old world, you know, human is in there somewhere, and he or she may not be as buried down deep as we'd all like to perhaps think. So, movie that makes you question kind of your humanity on various levels, which is, you know, why I think it's a very clever film, why I think it's a very intelligent film, why I think it's a film that has stood the test of time. There is a prequel kind of slash reboot to this movie that is also called The Thing. That's why I made it clear I called it John Carpenter's The Thing to distinguish it from the other, which basically shows what happened at the Norwegian camp, even though it changes certain things that kind of become continuity errors. So wasn't the biggest fan of that, but it did bring a lot of attention back to this movie. So, you know, if you're curious, by all means, check out that movie. You know, it's cool for what it is, but it kind of plays out more or less the same as this one. And I feel this one does a better job of creating tension and more memorable characters. But that's just my personal opinion. By all means, go check it out for yourself. See what you think. So, The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing. Have you seen it? If so, what did you think? If not, I will leave some links in the description section below where you can pick it up, go watch it, check it out, come back, give me some of your thoughts. And as always, guys, we'll catch you in the next one. Peace!